Welcome to WebGoat's A1 Insecure Direct Object References. Before we actually get into the module, I'm going to briefly touch on some technologies used within the module. First and most importantly, let's talk about the different methods used to make HTTP requests. On a basic level, you can separate these into two categories, GET methods and not GET methods. The GET method notably takes its data in the form of URL parameters and can't take data in the body, which means that you can't use things like JSON or XML. All of the other methods, such as post, put, patch, and delete, can also take data in the form of URL parameters, but mainly take data in the form of body content, and often as JSON objects. The second thing I want to review real quick is that parameters in the URL can either be formatted as a query string or a direct object reference. Both of these methods can achieve the same effect, but the backend server you're requesting interprets both of these methods in different ways. So now that we know these two things, let's get into the module. This first section of the module only has one step, which is to authenticate as the user Tom, whose credentials are shown on the main screen. This is the only step required to finish this first section. This second section is where we're going to begin using burp. As we can see here, the question is asking us for the two attributes in the server's response that we can't see on this page. After clicking on View Profile, we now know the name, color, and size of Tom, so keep these in mind. We're now going to request the profile again, but this time we're going to intercept it. So in burp, open your proxy and turn on the intercept option. Once intercept is on, open WebGoat and press View Profile again, and then return to burp. We can now press forward a couple of times to find the request that we're looking for. In this case, we're looking for the profile endpoint. Once you find the request, forward it to the repeater so we can imitate it ourselves. Once you're in the repeater, you can send the request again. In the response, you'll see an object with the familiar name, color, and size fields along with two new ones, user ID and role. These are the two fields that the question is asking for in WebGoat. This step is pretty simple and is just demonstrating the response from the server and what it looks like. Moving into section 4, we can see that it's asking us to try to predict the pattern of the direct object endpoint of a user profile. Here, we can use three things that we've learned so far. We've learned the request endpoint to get a user profile, along with how a URL can accept a direct object reference, as well as the user ID of Tom's user profile. Using these three things, we can predict that the endpoint will likely be the profile endpoint with an additional path pointing to the user ID of Tom's user. So let's try it with a direct object reference. And this marks the completion of section 4. Now let's move on to the fun section. In this section, we're tasked with using what we've already learned to view the profile of another user. So let's review what we actually know. We know that we can request the profile endpoint to get our profile. We also know that we can request the same endpoint with an added user ID as a direct object reference. What we don't know is what the user ID is of any other users. So let's take the request that we have in the repeater for Tom's profile and send it to the intruder. Once in the intruder, we're going to go to the right side and clear all snakes. Then we're going to highlight the user ID at the end of our endpoint, and we're going to add snakes around that. This tells burp which number to increment every time we send a request. Now that we have snakes around this value, you can go to the Payloads tab and change the type to number. Change the to value to, let's just say, 15 above our current value, and then step by 1. This is going to resend the request for every number between Tom's user ID and 15 above Tom's user ID. Now click Start Attack, and if you get this message, you can actually ignore it. Let it finish its requests, and then look for a response with an HTTP code of 200. There should be 3 requests within this log, so look for the one that says congratulations, and it should also have the values of another user's account. Congratulations, you've successfully exploited an insecure direct object reference. Thank you for watching.